Okay, hi. It is 2:27:24, 8:53 a.m. And hi. Here I am going to do another review. This is a different kind of review. I was thinking about sexy, beautiful, pretty, the different adjectives that I like to say when I'm looking at people. Because, like, I particularly the word sexy, because sexy, when you say someone's sexy, that means like they make you think about sex. So, if you're calling someone sexy, they definitely make you think about sex. Okay, so anyway, I have said in my other videos that I really don't watch that much TV. So if these shows are, kind of older, and maybe not as relevant to you as whatever you're watching these days, sorry, but these are the shows that I am familiar with and that I could make a list about. So I think I put some popular shows on the list. I put 10 shows on this list, and then I am going to talk about the sexiest men on the show and the sexiest women on the show. So here we go. Since I've talked so much about Game of Thrones, we'll start with the Game of Thrones show, the original series on HBO. I'm just gonna say for the women, I think all the women on Game of Thrones were sexy. I didn't see any women that were not sexy on that show. But here are the top three sexy male performers in Game of Thrones, and that was Kit Harrington, Jacob Anderson, and Nicola Coster. And Nicola Coster was who played Jamie. Jacob Anderson played Grey Worm, I think, and Kit Harrington played Jon Snow. So those were the three sexiest, and I do think that when character got involved in the sexy element, I would give the number one spot to Nicola Coster on that show. And as far as the women, they were all sexy. Okay, next show is Breaking Bad. And in that show, this is the sad part. I really didn't see any sexy women on Breaking Bad. There weren't any sexy women. And there were only two sexy men. Uh, Giancarlo Esposito. I forgot the character he played, but he was some kind of. I think he ran the chicken place. And then Aaron Paul, Jesse. Those were the two sexy characters on that show. Besides that, there really wasn't much sex appeal in that show, even though it was a very exciting show to watch. But besides Aaron Paul and Giancarlo Esposito, I wouldn't call anyone sexy there. Um, okay, next is The Walking Dead. Uh, Now I know a lot of this show is going to have a lot of different opinions. Everybody had their favorites, but here, as far as the men, there were three that I thought were sexy, and Tom Paine, John Bernthal, and Jeffrey Dean Morgan. And as far as of the three, the sexiest one, I think, when you add character to it, was Jeffrey Dean Morgan as Negan. As far as the women, there were two that I thought were sexy. The one who played Sasha, Sonequa Martin, and the one who played Rosalita, Christian Serratos. I would say Sonequa Martin takes the top spot. So I would say the two sexiest on Walking Dead were Sonequa Martin and Jeffrey Dean Morgan. Okay. On the show The Stranger Things, it was a Netflix show. I think it still has another season coming. And this is a very weird show. I mean, it's a very weird show. And I mean, to even mention that there's some sex appeal in it is kind of weird, but there were a few moments where it was sexy. And there are three male characters, male actors that I think brought some sex appeal to that show. And now we love Winona Ryder, and there were some other pretty women, but I don't really think that the women on that show were bringing sex appeal. It was the men. And the three men there were Jamie Campbell, who plays Vecna, but you see him in a scene in the hospital. Okay, and then David Harbour, who plays the sheriff, I guess, and then one of the characters who isn't on the show anymore, uh, Billy, who was the older brother. He plays he plays Billy. Dacker Montgomery played him, and I would say of sex appeal, I would give the number one spot to Billy, played by Dacre Montgomery. I think that if anybody was making us drool, it was him, even though they made him out to be the bad guy. Okay, so next show, The Witcher. Uh, I don't. I think it's like hands down. There's only two characters to talk about that were, you know, mouth-watering delicious, and that was the two characters played Anya Shalatra and Henry Cavill. I mean, when they were on screen, it was just fire. It was just like wow, Drool City. Okay, that's The Witcher. And then the next show is did a review on this one, Yellowstone. And there is some sex appeal to it, even though I didn't give it a great review because of the plot holes. As far as sex appeal goes, there's some sex appeal going on there. There's two female actresses and two male actors that I want to give the sexy award to, not sex, excuse me, sexy award to. In the number 2 spot, Josh Holloway, even though it was short lived, as Rourke. I mean, he's a sexy actor, and the number 2 spot for women, the girl who played Summer, Piper Perabo, she's sexy, and in the number 1 spots for Yellowstone, the sex appeal goes to, for the woman, the girl Laramie, played by Hassie Harrison. She's very sexy, and Casey, played by Luke Grimes. Those are the two I think brought the most sex appeal to that show. Okay, an old show that most people know in American culture was Friends, and the two characters that I think were the sexiest on that show were Joey and Rachel. On Friends, they were the sexiest. The others they had moments of like cuteness and sexy, but Joey and Rachel really were the sexiest characters. And Jennifer Aniston, and I forget the actor who played Joey. I forgot his name, but I just called them Joey and Rachel because that was Friends. It was a comedy, but there was some sexiness going on, and I think it mostly was shown through Joey and Rachel. Okay, another comedy show that people might not consider having sex appeal, but I did because I think, the comedy was really well done, and I think that did have some sex appeal. The Big Bang Theory. Okay, so there's two girls that were definitely sexy, and there's two guys that, even though they played total dorks, I thought they were sexy. In the number 2 spot, Bernadette and Sheldon. Bernadette is very sexy, even though she's just wild, like a wild dorky girl. She's cute. She's sexy. And then Sheldon, even though he plays this really irritating dork, he's sexy for some reason. It's weird. And then in the number 1 spot, Penny, she's your typical cheerleader type. She's sexy. And Raj, which is the Indian loner, but for some reason, just looking at him, you're just like, wow, he's sexy. Okay, that's The Big Bang Theory. Okay, and then the last 2 shows I'm going to mention, there's no top spot or second or third place spot. These are just random actors that were in 2 different shows that had sex appeal. American Horror Story. In American Horror Story, a lot of people didn't like that show because every season it sort of changed and the characters were flipping, and it didn't have a timeline plot. It was just very, very random show. But it does have very sexy actors and actresses that pop into this show because it's so random. And I really like that artistic appeal, especially when we're talking about sexiness. So here are just some names of actors that showed up in American Horror Story that I would say deserve the Sexy Award. Matt Bowman, Evan Peters, Emma Roberts, Jeffrey Boyer, Finn Wittrock, Zachary Quinto, Kim Kardashian. I know, I'm not even a big fan of hers, but she is sexy. Jeffrey Boyer Chapman. They were all somewhere in American Horror Story at some point, and you can't deny that they're sexy. And finally, a show that hasn't been on in a long time, but I used to watch it, and I thought it was funny and interesting, and it was Desperate Housewives. And for that show, again, I'm just going to throw out the actors' names that I would give the sexy award to: Leslie Grossman, Mehcad Brooks, Maria Cross, Brenda Strong, James Denton, Jesse Metcalf, and Drea DeMatteo. They all brought sexy appeal to Desperate Housewives. So anyway, I mean, when you see like a magazine or somebody talking about the sexiest man alive or the sexiest woman alive, it's kind of uh, hard to say because you've seen so many shows, you've seen so many actors and actresses, and it depends on your mood, right? It depends on the mood, but that from these shows, that these are the shows that I've watched, and I was familiar with the characters. I was familiar at looking at someone and going, wow, yeah, he or she is definitely sexy. I would do that. So that's why I wanted to mention um, this list. And maybe it doesn't matter, but I mean, sometimes it helps for a show. I'm not talking about movies right now because movies are, I think, a different genre than just shows. But and sometimes it just helps to have a little sex appeal, going on in the show, whether the show is sex oriented or not. It just helps. It doesn't have to be a soap opera, but eye candy helps.